That's good. So talking about moral failings and not putting up with it from leaders transitions us to our next topic, where let's talk about ministry leaders. And once again, it pains my heart. I don't want us to be a podcast that just bags on the church. We love the church. We want to help the church. That's what we're trying to do with all our free leadership resources and trying to support ministry leaders and to help raise up their leaders as well. But we do, if we are to achieve our mission of eradicating poor leadership, we have to highlight examples of poor leadership. And unfortunately, we see far too often moral failings in ministry. And one of those examples is Carl Lentz, obviously former senior pastor of Hillsong, New York. And the reason why we bring it up now is he's kind of popped up in, he did a post in social media just recently of him and his family and just talking about how, just a brief statement of how tough their year has been and how tough the time has been since him stepping back from having a moral failing, having an affair, and then being exposed and kind of admitting to that and then going back and working as in his family. But I suppose the question that I want to ask out of this is, okay, we spoke about success giving you immunity. Obviously, he wasn't immune. He stepped down and the church took the right steps with that. But, and we've spoken about other things with that church recently, but why does it seem that success leads to immorality? Why is it that we see all of these examples of great leaders in the church, out of the church, everywhere, but specifically in the church, these great leaders taking incredible ground for the kingdom and yet having moral failings? So I suppose the question I want to ask, Dr. Rod, is it possible to have success without having a moral failing?
Oh, yes, I think it is possible to have success, and there are plenty of examples. But we also do know that success can often be one of the factors which seems to be in that mix that explains why somebody has fallen morally. And look, typically it'll be in the sexual area or the financial area. Those are the two most common ones. And look, both areas are very tempting, of course, because we perceive that many of our needs can be satisfied either through sexual relationship or through money. And look, that's part of being a human being. Those impulses are actually meant to be good impulses. If we believe we've been created wholly by God, I mean, WHO, not HOLY, as in
Wally.
The whole person has been created by God. The thing about money, finances, is there's ambition behind that, and ambition is a good thing. Yeah. Aspiration is a really good thing. And I do believe that one of the characteristics of the Christian faith that separates us from other faith traditions is that we actually honor aspiration. It's okay to aspire to be in a better position tomorrow than you are today.
Yeah.
And I think that goes right across the board in terms of both our walk with the Lord, but also our material well-offness, our social relationships, everything.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, is sexual, and God created us as sexual beings for many reasons. Pleasure, yes, but apart from that, for the bonding of a man with his wife, for the building of family, which is, of course, the basic building block of a whole society. And I think the sexual act also is an affirmation of the covenantal relationship between a husband and wife. So it comes from God, but Satan tries to distort everything.
Yes.
And if we're not careful, we can kind of fall into the trap of allowing, if you like, the carnal. That's the bit of us. It's not really the bit of us, but that the carnality is probably best understood as those moments when we forget that we're living under the wings of the Almighty God, and we step outside and say, well, actually, I am my own God, and that I'm here to satisfy my own needs. And bringing it back down to perhaps a more practical level, as you know, I am Pentecostal. I belong to the largest Pentecostal movement in Australia, and it is affiliated with the largest Pentecostal movement in the world. But one of the things that I worry about a little bit is an implicit model of leadership, which essentially says, I'm the leader and everyone else, you're the followers.
Yep.
And that, I think, can lead to an unhealthy culture where we don't really question the most senior pastor in a church setting, say the senior pastor, or sometimes we call them the lead pastor. But also, I think sometimes they, because of their position, feel that they can't be, as it were, as human as the rest of us.
Yeah.
So they can't admit, for example, that they're getting tired, they're getting stressed, they're getting worried. And, when that happens, and when we don't really seek an appropriate person or group of people to share that with, we may find there is someone on our staff, someone in our congregation who's sympathetic. We have a coffee with them, and one thing leads to another, and you end up in an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
So I do feel that we have to be very, very careful about the mental model that we carry around in terms of what it means to be a leader.
Yeah.
Yes, look, you would expect your leader to be putting a lot of time and effort into hearing from God and obeying God. But I also think there is great danger in the model that says, there's the leader, that it's that one person at the hierarchical head of our church, and everybody else is a follower.
Yeah.
Because that can lead to a culture, intentional or not, where people don't question the leader, nor do they hold the leader accountable. Now, I know that it's the kind of tradition in some denominations that a pastor doesn't go to their own leadership team, but they go up the line, so to speak. That's okay as long as the people up the line have a really good idea of what's going on within that church. And honestly, most of the time they don't. Because if their only conduit, as it were, into that local church is through the senior pastor, then with all the best will in the world, the senior pastor can't give the right picture, because it will always be presented through that pastor's own perceptions. And those perceptions might be quite different to reality. So, look, I humbly submit this to church leaders everywhere. Think really, really carefully about the cultural implications of your leadership model, and ask yourself the questions: are we leaving our senior pastors vulnerable to the possibility of a moral failure, either in the financial or the sexual area? The leaders have to be surrounded by people who love them enough to truly hold them to account. And look, if we're truly submissive to the Lord, surely we're going to be submissive to some method, some system of accountability.
Yeah, we have to be accountable. We have to be accountable, and I think that one thing that I found when I was leading in the church is I found myself in a very lonely place, because my best friend and like the people that I was hanging out with were my leaders from church, and so I had to kind of put on a facade. Not that I was fake, but you kind of have to present, the best version of yourself to them, because you're a representative to them. And then I realized that my mentor, the person who I was speaking up, that I spoke was upline, I suppose, to me. I'm like, well, I'm constantly trying to impress them because I want them to see the best version of myself. And I kind of found myself in this very lonely place that I'm like, I actually don't have anyone really to talk to. And obviously you became that person for me, Dr. Rod, that you knew the rawness of everything that I was going through. You knew my dark thoughts, you knew my happy thoughts, you knew. I mean, the advantage was we were living. I was living under your roof, so you were able to see more of it than even I wanted to share with you anyway. So you got all of me, and I think that served me well over time. Is just knowing that there's this group of people, my board, my advisors, my intercessors, and pastor, and everything like that. That I just share my true thoughts, so my psychologist and things like that. I have people that I'm accountable to. I have those people that I'm accountable to so that they can catch me out early on before I have a moral failing. I can share with you, I'm starting to have these thoughts, and you can see the red flags, and my psychologist can see the red flags, and my intercessors can see the red flags, and they can pray into it. You can give me advice, you can guide me, and I think that it's obviously, be careful of who is it that you're actually. Who is mentoring you? And is it someone that you're just trying to impress? Or do you actually have a coach, a mentor that you can be honest, you can be real with, and they can be honest and real with you to be able to try to catch you out before you get to that point? I think the other thing that I think also, Dr. Rod, is we just need to be careful of drinking our own Kool-Aid. Right? Like we as leaders can't believe our own hype, so to speak. We can't get caught up in all the praises that everyone gives us, and yes, we need to present this best version of ourselves. We can't believe it. We can't. We have to understand who we are as a person, our humanity, and I suppose that goes back to having mentors, is being able to, like I share with you, like my failings and my struggles. And while I don't want us to be negative and only see ourselves as the failures, we actually, Wes Hone used to have this statement, and I absolutely loved it, of how he handles the ups and downs of business. And I suppose we can take this for leadership as well. Is how does he handle the ups and downs of business? Because there's always ups and downs in business. He says, well, I don't get super excited with the ups, and I don't get super depressed with the downs. So we shouldn't get overly excited with our success, but also don't be affected by our failures as well. Like don't wallow in mistakes, I suppose. What's your thoughts on keeping that level head and not drinking our own Kool-Aid, so to speak?
Oh yes, I think we do have to be fairly careful of that. I mean, it's lovely when people congratulate you. I think it's great, and it's good to receive positive feedback. And in fact, when people give me positive feedback, I do thank them for their encouragement because I need it. Look, I'm very, very blessed because I have a wife, 2 adult married daughters, and they are really, really good at keeping reality before me. I'm really, really grateful for that.
Yep.
And I remember once, this is just a tiny incident. We were at a restaurant, and the waitress she put some food before me, and I said, "Thank you, darling." And one of my daughters, she looked at me and she said, "Don't do that, Dad."
Yep.
And she probably won't even remember that. But I thought, guess what? This is my family saying terms of endearment like that are for family.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I've never, ever said that to someone who wasn't family since that time.
That's really good.
And I really love my family for that. And often jokingly tell people, look, my family will tell me when it's time to stop preaching.
Yeah.
And honestly, I trust their judgment because, see, I know how much they love me.
Mm.
My
Yep.
wife, my daughters, my sons-in-law, they love me. And they love me enough
Yeah.
to be that honest with me.
Yeah, that's good.
And I just hope all of us have family like that. Perhaps we don't. But the other thing is the people in our accountability group, they need to be like that.
Yeah.
They need to love us enough to be 100% truthful with us. And we have to trust them so much that we can tell them our innermost fears and thoughts.
Yeah.
And that is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I have some friends like that, and I consider myself very, very blessed.
Yeah. That's good.
Am I always totally honest and open with them? Like, I would have to say I failed at times in that area. But I believe in accountability. I think it's really, really important. I think if you look at the early church, there were mechanisms in existence. The church wasn't organized in the way that it is today, but there was a basic organization of the church of the city. And I think there were some principles in there which are really important for us today.
Yeah.
Maybe we could summarize it by saying, don't ever be a lone leader. Don't be a lone ranger.
Yeah, it's good.
Have people around you. And
Well-
if you don't have a family like mine, and you've got to be pretty tough to survive a family like mine, let me tell you. But if you don't have a family like mine, just pray that God will bring into your sphere. You just need 3 or 4. You don't need a lot of them.
Yep.
You just need 3 or 4. And go to them for counsel.
Yeah.
Go to them when times get tough. And don't forget to be honest with God.
Yeah.
Tell him.
Yeah.
Tell him what you're thinking. Tell him what you're feeling. If you do feel attracted to one of your staff, tell him.
Yeah.
And give him permission
Mm.
to work on this area
Yeah.
of your life. Give him permission. I do that. There are issues right now. I hope my wife and family don't see this. Not serious. It's not serious. But there are issues I'm taking to God.
Well, you're addressing it before it's an issue. That before it's serious. That's
so,
what you're
Lord,
saying.
You
Yeah.
know, I can't do this. I need
Yeah.
you to help me in this situation. So do that.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
God never created us to be lone leaders. He didn't create us to be lonely leaders either, but he didn't create us to be lone leaders.
Mm. So I like what he said, like don't be a lone leader, but I actually kind of want to play on that wording a little bit, is like don't be alone as in don't be alone without mentors and
Yes.
and advisors and some people you can be honest with, but don't be alone with the opposite sex, like you were saying earlier. And understand, like you're saying, don't be alone without God. Like, don't do this without God. Remember, I think that kind of to wrap up this part is, I feel like just reminding people is we're not here to serve our vision. It's not us about becoming us successful. It's, actually a prayer that we prayed at the start of this is the prayer that Jesus prayed, is like, glorify me so that the Father in heaven will be glorified. That we need it. I think when we remember that we are just here serving the mission, the purpose that God has for us, that he's the one that provides our success for us. Yes, we have to work for it. Yes, we have to do our part, but God God is the one that provides the success, I think it makes it much easier for us to stay humble, right? It makes it easier for us not to drink our own Kool-Aid. And when we realize that it's God that's doing all this in partnership with us, that it's God's path that we're following, that God's called us to serve these people that He's entrusted us to lead, and it just makes it so much easier to kind of not get wrapped up and believe that we are the successful or powerful, kind of satisfying our own needs, but also that we're infallible, right? And so my encouragement to you as a leader, whether you're in ministry or in the marketplace or in politics or wherever you are, just believe you're there serving the purpose that God has called you to. You're not there for your success. You're there to be successful so that God can be glorified through your success. Hey, did you like that video? If so, give us a thumbs up and put a comment below and share your thoughts on the topic. This is an excerpt from our On the Cube Leadership podcast, and if you'd like to watch the full episode, please click through to check out our channel and consider subscribing, or watch the next video.